With a new Jurassic World movie coming out this summer, I thought it would be a good time to take a look back at the original Jurassic Park movie and its first two sequels. They were hugely popular back in the day, but have they stood the test of time? Let's take a trip back to 1993 to find out. The first Jurassic Park is probably still the high point of the franchise. It's beautifully structured, teasing the dinosaurs for ages before finally showing them. The first scene has a caged dinosaur that eats someone, instantly setting up the stakes, but you won't ever see its eye. Grant tells the kid all about velociraptors, long before we ever see one. Even after they get to the island, there's a long helicopter ride, followed by a long jeep ride, before they finally see the first proper dinosaur, a big CGI Brachiosaurus. It looked amazing at the time on the big screen, not so much nowadays. Computer graphics have got a lot more detail over the past few decades, but the practical animatronic dinosaurs still work well though, as we see when the cute baby raptor hatches out of an egg, and later on when they find a sick Triceratops. There is still a long wait before the action really kicks off, but it's not boring. The movie takes its time to introduce all the characters and explain the science behind the dinosaurs, rather than jumping straight to the carnage, and it's all the better for it. It all kicks off when the computer systems are sabotaged, and the T-Rex attack is still terrifying, with the iconic rippling glass of water heralding its approach, before it smashes into the kid's jeep and eats a lawyer on the toilet, establishing itself as a major threat. Even when the dinosaurs are off-screen, there are still some impressive action scenes. Grant saving Tim from the jeep stuck in a tree before it falls to the ground is a really tense sequence, and later on we have Grant and the kids climbing over an electric fence before the power turns back on. These kinds of scenes all help to keep the tension going without needing to have dinosaurs continually on screen. When they do show up, there are still some spectacular scenes. The characters caught up in a stampeding herd of gallimimus still feels very fast and exciting. And the velociraptors stalking the kids through the kitchens is a very tense scene showing the creature's intelligence. Finally, there's the iconic moment where the T-Rex steps in to save the day by eating the raptors. It's basically saying, I'm the real star of the movie and don't you forget it. As for the human cast, Richard Attenborough as John Hammond is a lovable grandpa figure, twinkly-eyed and full of enthusiasm about his work, but rather naive about the dangers. He's nothing like the rather shady character he's in the novel, but it works for the movie. Sam Neill as Grant is a solid hero type. He has the biggest emotional arc, going from hating kids at the start of the movie to repeatedly saving them throughout. And you can imagine him and Ellie starting a family soon afterwards. They're clearly meant to be a couple here, even if it's not explicitly stated. Jeff Goldblum as Ian Malcolm is the most complex character. His long hair, shades and leather jacket look is unfortunately similar to Russell Brand, so you automatically think he's a bit of a creep, and the way he constantly flirts with Ellie just reinforces that. But he gets all the best lines, and he's dead right in his warnings about the dangers of the park, so he comes off as decent in the end. Of the kids, Tim is a bit of an annoying brat, seemingly just there to get in danger and be rescued, while Lex at least gets to be useful at the end, using her computer skills to navigate the ridiculously complex system. Wayne Knight as Nedry is the villain of the movie. He's a bit of a stereotypical greedy slob, but Knight gives a very entertaining performance, and it's no surprise he's been a regular on TV comedies ever since. And Samuel L. Jackson also makes an appearance, right before he became a really big star. I completely forgot he was even in the movie, and his character doesn't even get an on-screen death. I guess he made up for that in Deep Blue Sea. Overall, it's still a very entertaining action movie, maybe not quite up to the level of Jaws or E.T., but as far as big summer blockbusters go, it's up there with the best. 4 years later, in 1997, we got The Lost World. Instead of a park, it's a whole island full of dinosaurs, which was a great idea when Sir Arthur Conan Doyle came up with it in 1912. Jeff Goldblum as Ian Malcolm is now the lead. He's toned down his sarcasm and quirkiness, and is now much more of a conventional action hero, so he's nowhere near as interesting as he was in the first movie. There's a brief scene with Hammond and his grandchildren, but apart from that, he's the only character to return from the first movie. It's an odd choice, but I guess they did it to tie in with the book version. Again, there is only one adult female character, this time Malcolm's girlfriend, Sarah Harding, played by Julianne Moore. It's a bit contrived that she's already on the island before Malcolm finds out anything about it, but she's a decent character, good at her job and caring about the dinosaurs. though Malcolm still treats her like a helpless female in need of rescuing. As it's a Spielberg movie, there is an obligatory child tagging along and getting in trouble. This time it's Malcolm's daughter Kelly. There was no indication of him being a father in the first movie. To be fair, he's not very good at it. I guess his arc here is learning to be a proper parent, and the kid does survive the whole movie, so on that level, he succeeds. But of course, she's only on the island because she manages to stow away in the trailer, which is completely ridiculous. Also in the cast is Vince Vaughn, playing himself as he does in every movie, and Richard Schiff, before he was in The West Wing, and he's pretty good. On the villain side, we have Alice Howard as Hammond's money-grubbing nephew. He does a really good job of being slimy and hateable, and his death scene is definitely earned. Pete Postlethwaite also gives a memorable performance as a big game hunter who seems to be just out for the glory, but he eventually turns out to respect the dinosaurs, which is quite unexpected. The dinosaurs are again mostly CGI, with models used when they have to interact with the actors, which works well enough, though with diminishing returns from the first film. Sadly, rather than populate the island with strange new creatures, they've basically just reused the ones from the first movie. T-Rexes and Velociraptors all back again, just more of them this time. We do see some Pteranodons at the very end, but it's really too little too late. The big action scene comes when two T-Rexes attack the trailer and it goes off a cliff, and there's an extended sequence of the characters trying to climb up while it keeps slipping down, and the T-Rexes keep attacking and it's pouring with rain. It's just a really great classic action sequence, and it's so good they even reuse it in the start of one of the Uncharted video games. The Velociraptors also return, and instead of just one or two, there are a whole flock of them this time, chasing the group through the remains of the InGen facility. Kelly gets to use her acrobatic skills to show she's not completely useless, but it still comes across like a blatant copy of the similar sequence from the first movie. After they all take off in the helicopter, the movie seems to be over, but there's still another half hour left. The final sequence has one of the T-Rexes rampaging through San Diego. It's a mystery how it manages to get from the harbour to a residential neighbourhood without anybody raising the alarm, but there are some iconic scenes of it peering through a kid's window, rampaging through High Street. I'm guessing they were using all the trailers. But the whole sequence feels like it was just added in at the last minute. Really, you could have made an entire movie with that premise, although I guess that would just have basically been Godzilla. Overall, it's a disappointing sequel. There's some decent action scenes, but very few new ideas. It's mainly just repeating the hits of the original. Spielberg does his best, so it's not completely unwatchable, but it's very disappointing all the same. In 2001, we got the imaginatively titled Jurassic Park 3. Spielberg and Goldblum are gone, Joe Johnston is the new director, and we get Sam Neill and Laura Dern back as Grant and Sattler. There was a fun misdirect in their first scene, as it looked like they've had kids, but it turns out they're only Ellies, and they are not a couple, and possibly never were. Ellie is really just a cameo at the beginning and end of the movie. It's good to see her again, but it's a bit of a waste of a character. Instead, the token woman on the island in this movie is Téa Leoni. She is married to William H. Macy, who's far too good for this sort of thing, and they hire Grant and his assistant Billy, played by Alessandro Nivola, to go back to Isla Sorna to rescue their idiot son, who's been stranded there for months. The first big action scene comes after the plane lands on the island. They try to take off again, but are attacked by a Spinosaurus. This is the new main dinosaur. It looks a bit like a T-Rex, but with a big hump, and it even has a fight with a T-Rex early on to prove its dominance. The escape from the crashed plane is arguably the equivalent of the trailer escape in the second movie. The plane gets progressively smaller, several minor characters are eaten. It's a good way to kick things off, getting straight into the action instead of building up to it. After this, they go to the abandoned lab and are attacked by raptors. Same old. And Grant is saved by the couple's son Eric, who has been stranded on the island for 8 weeks. It's a little hard to swallow. The island suddenly seems a lot less dangerous when you know that a 12-year-old can live there for 2 months without so much as a scratch. I guess Newton Aliens did the same thing, and she was even younger. After the tease at the end of the last movie, we finally get a proper action scene with the pterosaurs. It has a great introduction with all the characters crossing a foggy bridge one by one, before it suddenly appears and snatches Eric and takes him back to his nest. Luckily, Billy's carrying a parachute, so he can rescue him, which looks a bit ridiculous, but it's still pretty exciting, and it's good to see them using a different kind of dinosaur for a change. The Spinosaur comes back for the final action sequence, as the gang escapes down a river on a raft in the pouring rain, with some tense scenes as the raft is smashed to bits and they end up underwater in a cage. Luckily, they manage to escape by setting the dinosaur on fire in the river in the middle of the pouring rain. I'm not sure how that works, but somehow it does. Finally, the raptors return again, seemingly more intelligent than they are in any of the other movies, and Grant uses his 3D printed raptor voice box to drive them away. The biggest surprise there is that 3D printers were around in 2001. Who knew? The story is remarkably simple. There are no real villains. Billy does steal some raptor eggs, but then he redeems himself at the end by saving Eric. Grant's just in it for the money, and the big emotional arc comes with his family getting reunited. But it's hard to care about them when the mother and father basically lied to Grant to get him there and put his life in danger once again. Overall, it's a very simple movie. The action seems decent enough, and there's a few new ideas, which is more than you can say about The Lost World. On the whole, it probably hangs together slightly better than the second movie, but it's nowhere near up to the level of the first. So that was the first 3 Jurassic movies. Next month I will be reviewing the Jurassic World trilogy before the 4th one comes out. And by then I'll probably be so sick of these movies that I probably won't even go see it. So press subscribe if you want to see what I think of the next 3 Jurassic movies, and I'll see you next time.